Good morning, Big Ten fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Big Ten Morning Minutes. I'm your host, Michael Chen. It is Friday, February 15th, 2019. We'll get right into it as there was a decent amount of news on the football field yesterday. We'll start off with what I thought was the biggest story of the day yesterday, as a judge has issued a warrant for Nebraska's running back Maurice Washington in California. There was a 10-second video released last year at some point in time with a sexual assault. It is not Washington in the incident, however. He is being subpoenaed because he had spread the video around his high school campus. So he is being sent in pretty much for questioning. So there isn't obviously a big impact on that for Washington. However, obviously not good for his character. It'll be interesting to see what Scott Frost in Nebraska ends up doing with Washington. He played his true freshman season this past year, and obviously in the offseason, things happen, things change. We'll see what comes out of this as he most likely ends up heading home to California to deal with this situation. And in all honesty, I would conceivably see a suspension coming for Washington. It's not a good look for him, for the university at all, for him to kind of be a part of that incident. So obviously it is not what Scott Frost would want. You never want to see these kind of things happen in an off season. However, he is going to have to deal with that at the current moment. And because of that, I do see a suspension coming, albeit probably not a long suspension for Washington, but a suspension nevertheless. I could see a game or two due to the fact that he was involved in this egregious situation. So I hope that Scott Frost ends up doing the right thing and obviously punishing Washington for his involvement in this incident, although, like I said, he was not the perpetrator in this one. Moving on to Penn State, they lost their special teams coordinator and assistant defensive line coach, Phil Galliano. He's going to leave for the NFL. In all reality, you probably could have seen this one coming. James Franklin wasn't very happy with the performance of his special teams unit. He made a couple mentions about how they would have a fantastic punt and then shank one. So I think he wants more consistency out of that group. And Galliano, obviously being the leader of that group, that's where you got to cut the head off. And Franklin obviously did, so he's going to move on and obviously look for someone else to shore up the special teams unit. And we'll see how they go about doling out specific roles as well in Happy Valley. But Franklin is on the lookout for at least one new coach, a full-time coach on his staff. And also a little bit more Penn State news. We knew that wide receiver transfer Juwan Johnson was out on the transfer portal and he would not be returning for Penn State. Well, he made his choice yesterday, and he's going to go out to the West Coast and be an Oregon Duck for his final collegiate season. ESPN released their preseason top 25 FPI. This came with a lot of internet angst between a lot of people. When you take a look at it, it does not look at the Big Ten very highly. The highest ranked team is Michigan at 5. Then you won't see another Big Ten team until 7 spots later when you hit Penn State at 12, Ohio State at 13, Michigan State 14, Wisconsin at 23, and Iowa at 25. A little surprised the aforementioned Nebraska Cornhuskers aren't in that ranking. I'm very high on them going on into this next season. I think that Scott Frost has the program headed in the right direction. And, I've seen a couple other preseasons where Nebraska's in it, although, they're not in the mid-teens or anything like that. They are typically in the 20s, but they'll take it. I do like the fact that Iowa's getting ranked up there with this, but again, a lot of criticism towards this FPI. It's not it's not the best way to go about it. you've got when you look at the landscape, it's heavily SEC related. You've got obviously the returning national champions, defending national champion, the Clemson Tigers, and then you've got three SEC teams before you hit number 5 Michigan. You have Alabama, Georgia, and then LSU. And then after Michigan, you have Oklahoma sitting at 6, Notre Dame 7, Florida at 8, Auburn at 9, and then Oregon at 10. So you're looking at a whole lot of SEC teams, 5 SEC teams in that top 10. So I think that's where some of the hubbub came along, and obviously I think that it was warranted because it's not the most sound way to rank these teams. I would believe when you take a look at it, it's just a weird way to rank the teams. And I'm not going to take much out of this, but some other people weren't very happy about obviously the way that their teams were ranked at the end of this. So it's pretty neat there as well, but it's cool to look at, but in all reality, this really doesn't mean a thing. And then also another ESPNer, Jay Billis, hardwood, he released his top 13 teams that could win the tournament, and unfortunately for the Big Ten, there's only 2 teams, although they're the 2 best teams in the conference, and he ranked Michigan State at 6 and Michigan at 7. Those were in his top 13. He did come out, pretty much with a top 68, and the Big Ten was represented pretty well after that. After his top 13, you had Wisconsin checking in at 14, Purdue at 15, Maryland at 16, and Iowa at 22. Although I'm not quite sure those teams have the offensive firepower or defensive prowess to make a big-time run at a national championship this season, like Wisconsin, Purdue, Maryland, and Iowa. I think that Michigan and Michigan State have a very solid chance. Michigan State probably, I would kind of flip-flop them if I was Billis. I'm a little higher on the Wolverines, although they haven't been playing their best basketball recently. I'm a little bit higher on the Wolverines than I am on the Spartans, but either way, I think that both those teams have solid shots at competing for a national championship, going deep in the tournament as well. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Big Ten Morning Minutes. I've been your host, Michael Chen. I appreciate the listen. Give me a follow on Twitter at MFC2123. Have a great day and a great weekend, Big Ten fans.